From Relay, this is Connected, episode 544. In Italian, that's 544. That's a big number. Today's show is brought to you by our sponsors, Google Gemini, Squarespace, Turbulence Forecast, and Incogni. I'm your annual chairman, Federico Vitici, and it's my pleasure to be joined once again this week by the man formerly and also currently known as Stephen Hackett. Hello, Stephen.
I was wondering where that was going.
You know, like the artist formerly known as Prince.
That's
Maybe
right.
you should rebrand. Maybe you should rebrand to a symbol like Prince did at some point.
Could I use the command symbol? Apple probably has that.
I don't know.
trademarked.
Find a Unicode character that works for you
Okay.
and become that.
Okay. Yeah, maybe.
The podcaster formerly known as Stephen Hackett.
Hello, Federico.
Hello.
You doing okay? You doing all right?
I am very energetic today.
Yeah.
Not because of coffee, but because it's been
Life?
a nice day. Yeah, just life.
Life.
Yes. Yeah. Stephen, this
Mhm.
it's now Wednesday,
It's not.
and I think we gotta explain why it's not Wednesday.
Yes, we normally record on Wednesday, and yesterday, Wednesday, I got home from taking kids to school. It was about 9 a.m. You know, we were going to record at noon, and all of a sudden, I'm going to reenact it for you. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just sitting in my office doing show prep, you know, looking at email,
Okay.
doing my thing. And suddenly
thing.
I hear a crashing sound outside, like a tree. Turns out it was a tree branch. And then I hear zzz, 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 boom. I was like,
Wow.
what is happening? What? So I gingerly stick my head outside and
Gingerly.
I didn't want to, I was like, what is happening? It was
No,
very
that's
windy.
a good word.
It was very windy
Okay.
yesterday. And a couple doors down from me, a huge tree limb fell out of this tree and pulled the power lines down. Power lines on my street run behind the houses, and it pulled them down. And there happens to be a telephone pole on the very back corner of my property with a transformer and like a bunch of electrical stuff on it. And it was on fire. So I called like the utilities. They have like an emergency phone number. I called them. I was like, hey, a tree limb fell. This thing made a bunch of noise. A bunch of smoke came out. The fire's out now, but like, I don't have any power. And they came out. They were out there. They were out there pretty quickly. And they're like, oh, we got to send a different crew out. They're going to have to like restring these power lines and get on like 2 different poles and like reconnect it all. And we do have a whole home generator, which is great. Like I still worked yesterday. But what I didn't really think about when we put the generator in a couple of years ago was like, it's great to have power when the power's out. And you have not been to my house, which I find horribly and personally insulting. But
not that you know of.
oh, are you here right now? Surprise! You've been living in my attic for years. The power outages all the time because I basically live in like a forest, and the generator is really loud. It's like I did a test recording like with the door shut. I was like, we can't do this. So, anyways, we're here on Thursday. Hello, it's weird. Like I have felt off now for 2 days. It's like I define my schedule by like what I'm doing at work during the week, and like Wednesday is connected. It takes almost all day. Like we do a lot of prep, we record it, Jim edits it, I get it published. Like it's a large percentage of my Wednesday. So yesterday I just sort of like walked around aimlessly. Like connected wasn't there to ground me.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, well,
the power's
sorry
back.
this happened. Obviously, glad that everything is back to
Yes.
normal.
It was very exciting. There was a guy here at some point yesterday who just like had some wire, like thick wire, like wrapped around him and just like shimmied up this pole like he was some sort of like Indiana Jones character or something. It was wild. Like just
Wow.
Does Indiana Jones climb things? That may have been a bad example, but it's all back now. No lasting damage, best I can tell. And we're here. And there's a lot of follow-up to do, which is good.
Shout out to the power line, you know?
That's right.
Good.
Please,
Yeah.
please stay connected. Follow up. You were talking about your Vision Pro being your new night computer, so you don't you don't upset or distract your partner. She's trying to sleep.
Yes, correct.
And we were talking about how it sort of struggles in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And several people sent this in about using an IR illuminator. So this would basically be like a light that just emits infrared, that the Vision Pro, I guess, can use that to like track your hands and stuff. And you went out and tried this. How did it go?
Now, Stephen, you know me, right?
I do.
You
Better
know
than
how
you know
much
yourself.
Yeah. You know how much I browse Reddit, and especially these subreddits for people doing weird hardware things.
Yeah.
Do you or did you realistically think that I hadn't tried this
You
already?
hadn't. Oh, so you had already tried it.
Yeah, last year I bought an IR illuminator from Amazon. It's this thing that sort of looks like a home security camera.
It does,
but it's not a camera. It's got a bunch of like I don't know, LEDs. It's not the right word. It's got a bunch of like things that project infrared. I put it. So my idea last year was like, okay, I'm gonna put it next to the TV. So that's when I'm lying in bed. It's sort of illuminating with infrared the bedroom. And the moment that Sylvia walked in, once she was back from work that evening, she looked at that and she was like, "What is that?" And I explained, "Oh, it's infrared lights to illuminate the environment when I'm using the Vision Pro in the dark." And she looked at it. Then she looked at me and she was like, "You're gonna return that to Amazon tomorrow." But to be fair, I did a test that afternoon. I closed all the blinds at like 4 p.m. And I sort of laid in bed, and it didn't really have an appreciable change on the performance of the Vision Pro in the dark. Like it didn't, like it wasn't better in any meaningful way, really. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Does that mean Federico's blackout curtains? Jason wants to know from the chat room. So this is an interesting question because it led me to this is a whole thing that I had to realize a couple of years ago with John, that I think there is a fundamental difference between Europe and America when it comes to blocking out light from your windows.
That's really all that separates us, if you think about it.
Yes. Well, if you think about it, that's the key difference, really. We have what you may call like a shutter, I think. Or like, I don't have, I have curtains, obviously, but they're more ornamental than anything.
Okay.
We have, do you know what a rolling shutter is, Stephen? Like a proper shutter. Like you have a window
it's like, it's not fabric, right? It's like
No,
material.
It's plastic. It's plastic. And in our old apartment, we used to have like manual rolling shutters. So there would be like not a rope, but like this thing that you were like a little string that you were supposed to like unroll yourself and lower the shutter manually.
Yeah.
Now in our new apartment, we have electrical shutters.
I think in the US, people would refer to these as blinds.
Blinds, okay, blinds. Yes, we have blinds.
Okay.
So when the blinds are closed, everything is completely dark.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I was able to do it. And I got my blinds connected to Amazon, to Apple, to Google, thanks to my fancy home automation stuff. But in any case, I got a funny Vision Pro related follow-up for you as well.
Okay.
I was using the Vision Pro last night in bed. I put it on. My girlfriend is sleeping. Everything is completely dark. My dogs are sleeping. Put it on, and everything starts moving. Like all the windows begin moving.
Like in Vision OS, like your application.
In Vision OS. I should have mentioned. Let me clarify. All the lights were shut off, but my TV was still on. Important clarification that you will understand in a minute. Everything starts moving, and the Vision Pro starts saying, "Are you in travel mode? If you are on a fast-moving airplane or train, consider enabling travel mode." I was like, well, obviously I'm sitting in bed. You know, this bed is not moving. I'm not traveling anywhere. I'm not on a train. I'm not on a plane. And it kept insisting that travel mode was supposed to be engaged because I was moving. And it was very disorienting and it was actually kind of making me sick. I was like, what? Why does it want me to enable travel mode? And so I removed my Vision Pro. I looked at the TV, and Steven, you will never guess why the Vision Pro was being tricked into thinking that I was flying.
Was the TV showing something that looked like it was flying?
An Apple TV screensaver was showing an aerial view of some
Incredible.
part of planet Earth. I took a picture that I'm gonna post later. It was showing an overhead view of the Alps or something, and it was convinced that I was like looking down from an airplane or something, which I removed my Vision Pro. I was like, oh, this is incredible. I gotta take a photo. And even if you take this, actually, let me share this photo in Discord in a minute.
Okay.
I'm gonna share that on social media later. If you take a look at this picture, right? I mean, even if I was looking down at the Earth from a plane, right? This kind of view would be pretty dangerous for me because it would mean that I'm like parachuting down from the plane because I'm looking straight down at the mountains, right? If you take a look at that photo, like that's not a view from an airplane seat.
No, that's the view that Tom Cruise has on an airplane in a Mission Impossible movie.
Yes. The moment that I turned off the TV, the travel mode notifications stopped. So, yeah, there you go. That's machine learning, right?
That's bonkers. You know the thing on like TV ads, like Apple and Amazon, others, they'll have like some tone or something where the Siri or Alexa or whatever won't go off in people's houses. Like if they're just watching TV and there's an ad on. They need that for the screensavers in Apple TV. Like a little thing like embedded in it so the Vision Pro knows that, no, this guy's not really on an airplane. Yeah.
So there you go. And lastly, there continue to be some confusion, it seems, in Discord in terms of exactly what a blind is. So I'm just gonna share another picture in the Discord for people so that I can make myself clear. That's pretty much what I have. Please tell me what the proper name in English is for this thing.
Yeah, I would say blinds.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Okay. Glad we cleared up the premier window dressing podcast on Relay. That's what we're going for this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Connor wrote in again. Connor had the Bridge keyboard that they bought when Bridge was out of business the last time.
Okay.
And they had written in previously saying that their Bridge keyboard had imploded, and we asked what that meant. So this is what it meant.
Yes.
First, the rubber feet fell off, and then the hinge failed, causing the iPad to fall back 180 degrees. And then the keys began to fail. The Smart Keyboard Folio has been incredibly refreshing. It is so light, but I miss backlighting.
Well, Connor, first of all, thank you for the follow-up. But let me tell you, Stephen, do you remember a few years ago when I was also annoyed by the lack of backlighting on an Apple keyboard? And I stuck a bunch of glow-in-the-dark stickers on the keyboard.
I remember.
Connor, you may consider that if you want. I did it. I mean, look, it worked, okay? Mm-hmm. I had a glow-in-the-dark keyboard.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something you can do with the Smart Keyboard Folio.
Maybe. Nathan had a question. Hypothetical, if Apple were to only offer Apple Intelligence as a standalone service, how much would you be willing to pay for it as a one-time unlock or monthly subscription?
Jokes on you, Nathan. They would have to pay me to use it.
I would not pay for Apple Intelligence at this point.
No, Nathan, seriously. At this point, I wouldn't pay for Apple Intelligence. I don't think there's anything worth paying for. If at some point in the future that App Intense feature really works and they're able to ship it and it works as advertised and it's incredible, I would give them, $3 a month if it really works. Yeah.
But it doesn't.
but this is hypothetical. So
There you go.
realistically at this point, why would you pay for it, right? There's nothing. So
I went back and forth on this next one, including it in the show, and I decided to include it just for like the historic marker.
Okay.
Someone who put their name in the form as not Mark Gurman. And look, we don't do DNA testing on our feedback. Like, who knows? But not Mark Gurman wrote in. It's a shame to hear that Federico is thinking about going back to the Mac, because this year iPadOS is getting live window resizing and positioning similar to macOS and visionOS.
Yeah. What's the expression? Fool me once, shame on what's the thing? Okay. Not Mark Gurman. Sure. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, if they do it, great. If all they do on iPadOS is live window resizing and nothing else, it's still not going to change the fact that the kind of openness and the kind of apps that you can use on macOS these days, especially with this new generation and new wave of AI tools, just cannot exist on iPadOS because of the limitations of the platform. The issues go way deeper than live window resizing. So, I mean, that would be a welcome enhancement, but I think the issues are more fundamental than that.
Yeah, I do too.
But good call, Steven, including it for the historical context. If they do ship it, we know that not Mark Gurman was we have our own leaker, so to speak, you know? Everybody's a leaker these days. You have plenty, all these new leakers that have information. We have our own. So
yeah, not Mark Gurman.
Not Mark Gurman. NMG.
And lastly, a little bit of follow-out. I'm going to call this Happy Birthday, OTJ. It's not his birthday, but John wrote yesterday or 2 days ago, on Blue Sky and probably other places. 10 years ago, I launched an app and knew it was going to change everything for me. I wasn't sure how, but by the end of the year, I was writing at Mac Stories, and I knew there was no going back after getting a taste of doing my own thing.
Yeah. Congrats, John. We've been working together for 10 years. And in fact, it was thanks to our former co-host, Michael Hurley. We need to thank for introducing John to Mac Stories. I believe Myke convinced John 10 years ago to approach me for a story that he was working on. And I'm very glad he did, because, he's my business partner now. So, yeah, man, I can't believe it's been 10 years. But
that's wild.
Yeah.
But yes, congratulations, John. That's awesome. A lot of stuff happened 10 years ago. I saw also Brian Mueller put on Mastodon that it was 10 years of carrot weather this week as well.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah. Wild.
A lot of anniversaries,
Mm-hmm.
This episode of Connected is made possible by Google Gemini. I tried Gemini a couple of days ago, Gemini Live, where you talk to it, and you guys have a full-on conversation with this thing. I asked it to give me some ideas for hosting an event, and when it starts giving you results, you can just stop it and say, okay, well, what about something a little bit more low-key for a smaller group? That's definitely my speed. And then it adjusts to that, and you can keep going until you get an idea that you want. Brainstorming things is a great use of Google Gemini. It's so good if you don't know where to start, or if you hit a wall with something. Just go to Gemini and it helps you get the ball rolling. But you can use it for all kinds of stuff. If you want to learn something new, you can have it give you advice. You can ask it to explain something like Bitcoin in simple terms, or you can have it quiz you on microbiology. Imagine being a student and you've got this personal tutor on hand. So go check it out. See how it listens to you, responds, and adapts to your style of conversation. And it is free. Our thanks to Google Gemini for their support of the show and all of Relay.
So just before we sat down to record this episode, Steven, the Mark Gurman, so not Mark Gurman, but the actual Mark Gurman, published some breaking news on Bloomberg. Bloomberg reports that Apple CEO Tim Cook has lost confidence in the ability of AI head John Gianandrea to execute on product development. Myke Rockwell, the head of the Vision Pro, is now taking charge of the Siri team. So apparently, Gianandrea is still at Apple, will continue to oversee the research, the testing, and other AI-related technologies in a larger AI role. We know what that means. But Rockwell will now report directly to Apple's Craig Federighi, head of software, and Rockwell is now in charge of Siri and making sense of, I guess, how to ship a proper next-generation Siri. I was both expecting and not expecting this. I'm kind of curious to know what you think, Steven.
Yeah, I figured that there would be some changes, but maybe not at this high of a level. Like this is
yes.
I mean, John Andrea came from Google, and at the time we were all very excited about that and seemed like a very good hire. And I think it was a good hire. He's got a lot of experience in these things, but very clearly, Apple's not made the progress that they should. And I think somewhat clearly, at the very top levels of the company, they're holding him responsible for that. Now, whether he is or he came in and the technical debt is too great, like we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of this that we don't know. But I was a little surprised to see a change at such a high level. And Myke Rockwell led the Vision Pro project, for years in secret, and then was there at its launch and has brought that device into the world. And while it's not a perfect device by any means, it is an incredible feat that it's here.
Say what you will about the Vision Pro, and I've been a critic of the Vision Pro myself, but two things you gotta admit. They shipped it, and Vision OS is really it's a triumph of a new OS built on a completely new platform with really good design. Set aside the platform ecosystem or lack thereof, but Vision OS is incredible, and they shipped it. They shipped this completely new product. Again, set aside the price and the launch and the weird PR strategy, but they did it. They shipped it with a brand new operating system that is Vision OS is the reason why people still sort of are excited about the Vision Pro, because whenever I put it on, I think, oh, Vision OS is so cool, right? So clearly Rockwell seems to be the sort of leader that is able to ship.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what matters right now.
Yeah, I think so too. And in the chat room, it was brought up that, he seems to have a lot of expertise in the vision kind of AR, VR area. And I would imagine that that's gained over time. And while that seems like it may be a loss for that team, although his sort of second in command is going to be heading it up.
Yeah.
I think at the highest level, it's more important to have somebody who knows how to get a team to get something out the door than necessarily having lots of expertise in that particular thing. Now, Myke Rockwell is no dummy, and I'm sure that whatever he has to learn, he will be able to do quickly. And so I think I think it's a very interesting move. It's not one that I would have guessed that it would be Rockwell. But as Gruber wrote as this was breaking, basically, this also means that Siri is moving under Craig Federighi's group. And that is a change, and we'll see how that goes. Federighi now has more under him than I think at any point, probably, that we know about. And that's also an interesting reporting change here.
Yeah. So if you think about this change, there's an argument to be made for the fact that Vision OS itself and the entire category of, let's say, Vision products, right? Assuming that there's going to be multiple Vision non-pro products, whether that's glasses or another cheaper headset, but Vision products will benefit from a better artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, you look at what Google is doing, for example, with Android XR and the Gemini integration. Gemini is a sponsor, but like aside from that, like what they showed off, a product pretty similar to the Vision Pro and Vision OS, clearly inspired by Vision OS, but combined with an artificial intelligence that works. There's obviously potential there. And one could say, you can make an argument that Vision OS could be a lot better today if only it had a better Siri and proper AI features to make sense of your surroundings, to make sense of your windows, to help you sort of combine the spatial nature of Vision OS with a better artificial intelligence. And that's not here today. So maybe it is a surprise to say, oh, they put the Vision Pro guy in charge of Siri. But if you sort of remove yourself from that and sort of take a look at the bigger picture, I think it actually makes sense.
I would not expect anything drastic to change in the short term. I think that they've got work to do. There was a report, I think also by Gurman, that the personal, what were they calling it? Like the personal intelligence stuff, that was working like 80 or 85% of the time. Like, I don't know. I mean, who knows? There was also a quote from an Apple executive in that report that sounded like it was written by an LLM. So I don't know what's going on, about like swimming to Hawaii or something. It was very strange. It's going to take some time for this to get underway, and I think Rockwell has an uphill battle. But he, like we're saying, he had that with the Vision Pro and Vision OS, and it's here, and I think the Vision Pro's shortcomings, like the hardware is too expensive and too heavy. There's not a lot of third-party app support. Like, I don't think a lot of that lays at his feet necessarily. And so I think he's probably in a good position to make this move. And I hope it's the right move, because Apple does need to get this under control. And I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
If you were John Andrea, what would you be doing? Would you be, I mean, he's apparently doing all this research. There's also a team, like Gurman just loves the robotics team at Apple. Maybe he's doing some stuff with them, it sounds like. Do you think he's going to be at Apple in a year? I don't know what kind of contract he has, but like, if you were him, would you be looking at an exit?
I would be, I think. Nobody likes to get removed from their job.
Yeah. Just look at Myke.
I'm guessing,
he's not here anymore.
Yeah. And
He's going to text me about that
one. Yeah, I don't. Right now, without knowing anything, if I were to bet, $5, I would bet $5 on John Andrea not being at Apple within a year.
Okay. I'm going to my calendar. March. What's the day? The 20th?
Yes.
All right. $5 bet.
Mm-hmm.
John Andrea. Not.
Wait, how does
Apple.
this bet work?
I'm going to say he is still at Apple in a year, just to take the other side.
Okay. So in a year, if he's still at Apple, I owe you $5?
Yep.
Okay.
Federico says
What
he will
about
be gone. I say he is still there.
What about inflation, though?
It's an inflation-free zone. Okay, we're not talking about politics. $5 is $5 in this world.
Okay. No
right.
Tariffs for me? Okay.
No tariffs. That's the end of my kids' spring break next year. That'll be fun. Nice. Okay, it's on my calendar for 1 year from today. If I were him, I would take my money and I was talking to Chance Miller about this, and he agreed. He's like, I'd go buy a house on the beach and not use an AI product anymore. It comes out. This comes out the same week that we have all discovered that Siri doesn't know what month it is. So
yeah, I was playing around with this, and you really cannot get it to tell you what month it is. Yeah, it tells you that it doesn't understand,
which is concerning.
I was playing around with it. I think I took some screenshots. Let me see. So I asked Siri a bunch of variations, like, what month is it? Sorry, I don't understand. What is the current month? was my other question. Siri replied, it was Saturday, March 1st, 2025. Then I asked, in which month are we in? Sorry, I don't understand. Then I asked, what's the current month? Question mark. It was Saturday, March 1st, 2025. And then finally, I asked, please tell me the current month. And I asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT came back and said, the current month is March. So,
Apple.
incredible, right?
What are we doing? I mean, what are we doing, man? Like,
Now, let me try again. Siri, I'm begging you, please tell me what month is it? Oh, it's asking ChatGPT. Yeah, this is gonna work. It's March right now. So yeah, if you beg Siri, enough, it's gonna tell you.
It's great. I used, this is not in the outline, but I used the deep research thing on ChatGPT the other day.
Okay.
It's wild. Like, it went off and like did its thing. And then I came back to it, maybe 10 minutes later, and it like had written all this stuff, had all these sources. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Everybody's calling it deep research now. Like all these companies, they all have deep research.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny how the entire industry is sort of settling on the same names.
Mm-hmm.
Which on one hand is kind of funny. On the other, it kind of standardizes the features, which is at the very least, it's nice that the same feature is called the same in a bunch of different places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than 4.0, but the O is not a 0 or sometimes a 0.
I know.
Can't never tell.
01 mini high.
Oh,
03 mini high.
I've been redoing my network, and I got a bunch of Ubiquity stuff. They copied Apple in like Pro Max, and like, but at least I know what that means because Apple does it. Same thing with is it Dell did their laptops, or HP?
Yes,
one of the laptop companies did it.
Yeah, they have the Dell Pro, and the Dell Pro Max.
Yeah, but it's better than like 4.0 mini hyphen deep research underscore V2. What are we doing?
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay, I want to change gears a little bit because this came out, and I just texted you a link, and you were like, tiny topic. Like, here it is. We're talking about the Zenz Quattro Wireless Charger Pro 4. And Federico, I want you to paint a word picture of this thing for our listeners.
Okay. Imagine this. You just got married, and you wanna move from your apartment to a house, right? You wanna live in a big, old school family house. You wanna have a proper home from your family.
Sure.
And you wanna build your own home. And so you start from the foundation, right? You start from the foundation, and you keep going, and you realize, well, we're gonna have an entrance, we're gonna have a patio, we're gonna have a hallway goes into the living room. There's gonna be a kitchen. There's gonna be maybe a little studio at the ground floor. But then you realize, well, we gotta sleep somewhere, right? And so you realize, well, we're out of space at the floor level. We gotta go higher. And so you build a stairway, you build a staircase, and you have a second floor. That's where all your bedrooms are gonna be. Bedroom for you, bedroom for the kids, maybe another studio, maybe even an attic at some point. And you start building multiple levels. But what if I told you that your home is not a home? Your home is a wireless charger. And what if I told you that you're looking at a multi-story wireless charger? It's a little home for all of your devices, and each of them goes to sleep on a separate floor. This is a multi-level wireless charger where you can put different devices in different little bedrooms at different levels. It's incredible. So you're looking at a 2-layer, MagSafe certified charging stand is the official name. It has 4 wireless output surfaces, Each of them is 15 watts, Qi 2 certified. It comes with a 65 watt power adapter, and it's $150.
Yeah.
This thing is incredible, especially, and this is a long-term follow-up. If you recall, Stephen, many years ago, here on this very program, we talked about a previous Zense wireless charger that I acquired. I think it was like 2019 or 2020, something like that. Remember the wireless charger that I got that was making a noise because the charger had fans inside?
Oh, yeah, I do.
That was made by Zense. Now Zense is back, and they're bringing multiple floors with them. So $150, the dream of AirPower lives on multiple levels, literally.
It's
This is like Myke's nightmares as a product. you got a little lasagna of wireless chargers going on here.
To me, it looks like a biplane, like the plane with like the two levels of wings from the old times.
Yeah.
It's just very funny.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do love this product. Like, just looking at the photo, I'm not buying it because I know, knowing this company, I know this thing is going to sound like it's going to take off like a rocket or something.
Yeah, like an airplane.
I mean, like a biplane. Yeah. I mean, cool idea. Lots going on. That's for sure. Like, but, for the family, everybody can put their device on it. You can do, 4 iPhones charging at the same time. Not too bad.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, when you see the devices on it, it makes sense. But if you just walked into my kitchen and this was on the counter with no devices on it, you'd be like, "What? Yeah. What is that?" What is it doing?
You will put. If you saw that in the kitchen, that somebody will put the salt on it, just thinking, "Oh, it's like a little shelf for my spices." A
little spice rack. Man, just God bless the people over at Zense. They're making wild stuff.
Yes. Thank you, Zense. Yes.
This leads me to a question. What are we using for our charging these days?
I got the Belkin. I mean, I'm sure it's called something Boost Charge Pro because that's all that Belkin can use as a product name.
Uh-huh.
I got it it's the Belkin one from the Apple Store.
Is it the Cube?
No, that's the Anchor. If you recall, I upgraded from the Anchor Cube to the Belkin. Again, I'm 90% convinced it's called Boost Charge something. Every Belkin product is usually named Boost Charge, some combination of Pro or Unicode characters. So it's one of those from the Apple Store.
Okay. Is it the Belkin Boost Charge Pro 2-in-1?
See, there you go.
Does it like fold out?
No, it doesn't fold out.
Oh, that one folds out. Well, if you can find it, we'll have it in the show notes. And if not, good luck to our listeners, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Do you want to bet $5 more that it's called Belkin Boost Charge?
Oh, no, I'm sure it is. I guarantee you it is. There's the Belkin Boost Charge 2-in-1 magnetic. You say it doesn't fold. Okay. Maybe Apple doesn't sell it anymore.
Hold on, I got it. Wait, it's not called Boost Charge? I am shocked.
You owe me $5.
I am. Oh, no. Hold on. Belkin Boost Charge Pro 2-in-1 with MagSafe.
Okay.
See?
Drop that in the Discord. People can see it. My charging has not changed in a long time. I'm using the now discontinued, which makes me very sad, Studio Neat material dock. I've got one on my desk that the phone stands up so I can use the standby mode, which I really like. And then my nightstand, it's just like the old flat one with an Apple Watch puck next to it. It's great. I've used them for a long time. I like the way they look. And you have to bring your own MagSafe stuff to that, but that's fine with me. Wow. Okay, I'm just straight up putting the Italian Apple Store link in the show notes. Just
do it.
In Italian. That's what that link is.
Yeah.
The boost Unicode symbol for an up arrow, charge, trademark symbol, Pro 2, all of that is in capital letters. Okay.
Yes.
So it's yelling at
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
And then 2 and 1 and the rest of it not in all capital letters.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's some Chat GPT levels of branding on Belkin's part.
Yeah.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform designed to help you stand out and succeed online. So whether you're just starting out or you're scaling up your business, Squarespace gives you everything you need to claim your domain name, showcase your offerings with a professional website, and grow your brand. And you can use it to get paid. And all this is in one place, which is my favorite thing about Squarespace. If you're just starting out or you're at a big company, Squarespace is a great fit because it has all the tools you need and they're all integrated to make it all work together. You can get discovered quickly with integrated SEO tools. Nobody wants to build a beautiful website just for no one to see it. That's why every Squarespace website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more. So more people find your site through search engine results. And you can see how that's working with the built-in analytics. See what I mean? When it's all integrated, you're not like going out and piecing these things together. The built-in analytics keep track of the stats that matter with intuitive built-in tools. It makes it super easy for you to review your website traffic, learn where to focus engagement, and even track revenue from bookings, invoices, or product sales. So head on over to squarespace.com/connected for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code CONNECTED to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain name. That's squarespace.com/connected and the offer CONNECTED to get 10% off your first purchase and to show your support for this, your favorite podcast. Our thanks to Squarespace for the support of the show and all of Relay. Last week, we teased a column that you had coming about the iPad and software on the iPad. That is out now with a just absolutely savage title, The iPad's Sweet Solution. In this article, you talk about how the some of the most powerful and kind of well thought out software titles for the iPad aren't iPad apps, but they're actual web apps, PWAs. And before we get into some of the specifics of this, could you give us an update on like what PWAs are, how they interact with iOS and iPadOS, what they can do on these devices? Because I know this has changed over the years, but what's the current state?
Right. So I'm not a developer, so I'm going to try my best. So the PWA, it stands for Progressive Web App. It's basically it's a web app that from Safari you can save to the home screen on your iPhone and iPad. That's the sort of thing that Apple tried to get rid of last year as part of their quote-unquote DMA compliance. Everybody complained, and then they reversed their decision saying, we thought we had to get rid of PWAs, but turns out they can stay. So nice try, Apple. In any case, you've been able to save web apps to the home screen for ages now. They have progressive web apps on Apple platforms, specifically on iOS and iPadOS in this case. They have gotten slightly better over the years, not as much as they have on Android. On iOS, a couple of years ago, they added support for web push notifications, which didn't used to be a thing. So now you can say web app, it opens in full screen, it uses WebKit, obviously, due to iPadOS limitations. It supports push notifications. So if you're saving things like Todoist, for example, you can receive push notifications for the Todoist web app as a PWA on your iPad. But they come with all sorts of limitations. For example, they do not support share extensions, which is something that I think on other platforms is technically possible. There's a bunch of other things that web apps saved on the iPad cannot do that they can do on Android. One of the other ones, for example, when you're browsing with Chrome on Android and you come across a website that offers a PWA, Chrome tells you, they show you a little notification that says, if you want, you can save this as a web app to your home screen. And so you got that easier installation flow going on Android. On iOS and on iPadOS, it's all a little more manual. You got to go into the share sheet and you got to say add to home screen, and then you save it. So yeah, there are a bunch of limitations for PWAs on iPad. They are better, I think, on the Mac. You can do the whole Safari add to dock thing. And when you save a web app to your dock on macOS, I think you retain access to Safari extensions, which is also something that you don't have on iOS and iPadOS, because those web apps, they open in full screen. They don't show you any UI Chrome around them. So you're just limited to whatever is offered in the web app. Yeah, so that's sort of the gist of it's a feature that has existed forever, and it has slowly improved over the years on the iPhone and iPad.
Yeah. Do they show up as like individual windows in the app, in like the app switcher view?
They do show up in the app switcher.
Okay.
They do show up in Spotlight. I don't think they show up in the app library, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
So that's why I was putting them on my home screen, obviously, and in my dock.
Okay. So in this piece, you talk about how these PWAs are the truly, quoting you, desktop class layout and experiences that you can get on the iPad. And you point to a couple of reasons for this. One being Apple's App Store policies. I think that's the biggest reason here. But you also talk about the constraints of iPadOS, and you have this great insight here that this also extends to the Vision Pro, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's start with the App Store. We've talked about the App Store for years and the problems with it, but what do you see as like the high level reasons a developer may look at the web and look at the App Store and choose the web, knowing that there are trade-offs for their software if it's web only?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think one of the key factors to consider that it's been how many years since the introduction of the App Store? We're going into 17 years?
17, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole generation of kids who were born and raised during the App Store era. And in schools, they were most likely trained on using Chromebooks and in using web browsers and in using web apps. And some of those kids, who maybe showed an interest in programming, most likely decided to develop for the web instead of for the App Store, because they were familiar with the web, because some of the biggest services that they were using alongside those web-first computers, but the likes of Google Docs or Slack or Notion or Google Calendar, they were all web apps. And I think it's only natural that they gravitated toward a web experiences, not just because of what they were using in school, but also because if you are making that sort of calculation for yourself, like if I want to be a programmer and I want to make whatever I want, what should I make? And you look at the App Store, right? And you look at the limitations of iPadOS, and you look at all the restrictions that you have in terms of like, can I make whatever I want? No. One, because there are no APIs to make whatever you want to make. And two, because even if you were using some private APIs in a clever way, Apple would reject you. They wouldn't approve your app that sort of tries to push the boundaries of what is possible on an iPad or on an iPhone. So I think it's only natural that we're now, 17 years into this App Store era, and there's young developers now entering college or entering the workforce because maybe they're just fresh out of college. And I think naturally they are gravitating toward the web. And I think our current AI and LLM era is only compounding that, because all of these AI services and all of those APIs, they're all based on the web. They're either based on the web or, and this is the other sort of angle of my story. If you are a young developer, if you are a 20-year-old and you're like, I want to make something, I want to make something cool that uses AI or uses RAG or uses one of these new technologies. What should I make? And you look at your whole spectrum of devices that are available to you, right? And I think you go about it in two ways. You're like, well, either I make something on the web, right? Because of all these new web APIs and all these new LLMs and all these new things that I can do with Claude and Google and OpenAI, or I get into the whole open source local AI stuff. And if that's the case, if the second scenario is the case, you're getting a Mac or you're getting a PC, but you're getting a proper desktop computer. And so the result is that if you look at the landscape today, like, let's say you have my job, and my job is to look at new apps, new and interesting apps coming out. And there's two kinds of them. The first one is web apps, and the second one is cool Mac apps that are doing new and interesting things with local AI on your computer, on your Mac. And I think that's a combination of factors that ultimately only Apple is to blame for not being able to spearhead this generation of new programmers, of new developers. And I know that they're young because I get emails from them, right? They're all kids, they're all, fresh out of college, or some of them even still in high school, and they're making stuff, they're building stuff, and they're usually doing it on the Mac. They're usually do it on the web. And I think that is something that I've been feeling for quite some time. But the fact is, besides the artistic tools and some niche utilities on the iPad, most of the innovation that is happening right now for the kinds of email pitches that we get at Mac Stories, they're either AI apps, either local or web-based, or they are indie Mac apps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because on the Mac, at the very least, the indie developers, not necessarily, young developers, but even like, let's say you are a seasoned Mac developer.
I'm a seasoned Mac developer. Oh, you didn't want me to say it.
Yeah, you are seasoned. That's for sure.
That's true.
Yeah. But if you're a seasoned Mac developer, your new indie app is most likely gonna be a Mac app, whether it's a menu bar utility or it's a shortcuts utility, or it's a text editor, whatever. And you do it because you have the freedom to release it however you want, whatever you want, charge, choose your own business model, release it on the App Store, release it on the web, go, sign up for Setup and their developer program, whatever you want to do, you can do it on a Mac. And so that's sort of, I think, the context that was behind the idea of the story. And the end result was me over the past few months working on the iPad and me like, oh, look at me. I'm using a bunch of web apps on the iPad because these are better experiences than the native iPad apps that I can download from the App Store.
I think there's another element to it, though, that a lot of services that are on the web, they'll have an iPhone app, right? Mm-hmm. And the iPhone's obviously the biggest target in the Apple ecosystem. And I can't help but think that Apple hasn't, while they have given developers tools to take an iPhone app and get it on the iPad, a lot of the examples in your article, like the iPad apps just aren't good because either the developers didn't take the time or the tools weren't readily available to like scale it up to make an iPhone app a good iPad experience. Whereas a PWA, you can load in the web version and it looks really good. Like the Readwise Reader one, I think is the biggest example to me. Like it really startled me in your article, like the difference between their iPad app and their PWA.
Yeah. The shortwave one was also, I think, a good one because you were looking at a giant iPhone layout as the native iPad app suddenly becoming like this multi-sidebar affair if you were using the web app. And Shortwave is a good example because it supports web push notifications, just like Todoist, custom keyboard shortcuts, all kinds of things. So yeah, and that sort of leads into the conclusion of the story. Spoilers, I guess, if you haven't read it. But the conclusion being like, if I'm using the iPad, and I mean, goes without saying, I love the iPad, right? But if I'm mostly using the iPad to work with either a bunch of web apps or a bunch of cross-platform apps, like Obsidian, for example, why am I using the iPad at this point? Like, sure, because I want a tablet. But also, if I were to look ahead at next year, right? Looking ahead at 2026, if Apple is really coming out with a foldable phone that is a phone that expands into a small tablet, is there a potential scenario in which that device may sort of satiate my need for a tablet in my life? And at that point, should I just get a computer to get my work done? Should I just get a Mac? If I'm mostly using web apps, so should I just get a Mac so that the web apps are going to be the same? Like I'm going to use the same apps, the same web apps, the same cross-platform apps, but at the very least, I would also get the ability to use a whole bunch of other indie apps that I got to tell you, Steven, like I miss them. Like I miss, not being able to use apps that are from outside the App Store. And it kind of pains me to say it because I worked on the iPad for 10 years, and I think I exhausted my options. That's the thing. Like I did it all. I tried it all that I could do. I can do my job with the iPad, but the thing is, there's so much more to my job that I could be doing. I miss the days. I miss the old me. Like testing and writing about cool indie Mac apps on a weekly basis. And look at the app reviews that we have on Mac Stories. And look at my byline and how infrequently it appears. And that is the case because there's nothing coming out on the iPadOS App Store that I can write about. And if you compare and contrast to my app reviews from, say, 10 years ago, it's like a night and day difference. And I kind of miss that in my life. So
we mentioned the Vision Pro and how it has basically inherited a lot of these issues because Vision OS owes a lot to iPadOS. I think they're obviously very similar under the hood, but the App Store / developer situation that Apple finds itself in, as much as it has potentially hurt the iPad, it has really hurt Vision OS adoption, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's really the same story. At the very least, Vision OS, this is the thing from the story. Like it has the same limitations as iPadOS. I'm also mostly using web apps on the Vision Pro. But here's the funny thing about it. And this is another point that I try to make in the story. So we all made fun of the Vision Pro and the fact that it cost $3,500, right?
Mm-hmm.
The iPad Pro that I was using, spec'd, with nano texture, 1 terabyte cellular, Magic Keyboard and everything, is exactly $3,500.
Yeah.
In terms of like the euro to USD conversion. So it's the same price. But price being the same and App Store limitations being the same, at the very least, Vision OS gives me better multitasking because I'm not limited to 4 windows at once. And it would give me the escape valve that is the Mac Virtual Display. So at the very least, for the same price, very high price, that I would pay for both devices, with the same underlying iPadOS App Store limitations, one of them, though, gives me unlimited Windows and incredible integration with macOS. So high price being equal, I think the Vision OS product actually comes out on top. And that's kind of funny if you think about it.
If you're Apple, it's probably don't feel very funny, but there is something to it. but a lot of it's of
and
their
also
own
like
making.
I don't know, like I usually have a pretty good sort of like sixth sense for these things,
Mm-hmm.
and I have and it's and I kind of feel it in my bones. I have that sense again that the iPad as a product for Apple is sort of entered its sunset era, maybe has for a while. And I think that looking ahead at the next year, between the incredible things they're doing with the Mac lineup and what's happening in AI and what's happening with Vision OS and what they're going to do with the foldable, I have a sense that not much that the iPad lineup is in its, it's not that. What's the old expression? I think from Steve Jobs, you gotta choose the right horse to bet on, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
pick a technology. I don't think the iPad is the right horse at the moment.
This episode of the show is brought to you by Turbulence Forecast. When it comes to flying, you don't always have a choice, but wouldn't it be nice to know how bumpy it might get? With Turbulence Forecast, you can access the same maps that pilots use and forecast your own ride. Or let their automated turbulence tool create a custom color-coded map for your flight. Just pop in your date and times, and it's all right there in the iOS and Android apps or on the website. Looking for a personal touch? You can talk directly with the founder who's been forecasting turbulence daily for nearly 20 years. He'll give you a one-on-one briefing so you know exactly what to expect, and can provide guidance on a smoother day to travel up to 5 days in advance. If you hear this ad and connect with the founder, let him know you heard it here on Connected. He's actually a Relay listener, which is really cool. So check out Turbulence Forecast, the easy-to-use world turbulence map to see if it's calmer in the morning or smoother the next day. And stay tuned. This spring, Turbulence Forecasts are rolling out brand new features that will change the way you'll fly all over again, just like they did back in 2005. So check out Turbulence Forecast at turbulenceforecast.com. The link is in the show notes. That's turbulenceforecast.com. Our thanks to Turbulence Forecast for the support of the show and all of Relay. Well, the iPad may be a bit of a bummer, but we got some good news. I did not have this on my bingo card a year ago.
Okay.
Pebble is back.
Okay. Yes, they are. I'll just say up front. Okay. I'm just going to say it. I never really understood the appeal of these watches.
Okay.
I know that it's a cool project. I know there's probably a lot of cool people working on it. It's just my personal opinion. I don't think they look nice. I think they look kind of dorky. And explain to me why this is exciting.
I think it's exciting for people who want to tinker.
Okay, good enough. All right, I'll take that explanation.
Yeah,
Yes.
I knew that would speak to you. And as we get into it, it is not necessarily aimed at a bunch of Apple users for a bunch of reasons. Although in his blog post, Eric talks about something like 40% of people interested in it run an iPhone. But he also talks about how iOS is limiting to products like this. We're going to get to that in a minute, but there are two watches over at repebble.com. There's the Core 2 Duo, which has a 1.2-inch black and white e-paper screen. So this is like the classic Pebble, like remember like the Kickstarter 100 years ago. Plastic frame, $149, start shipping in July. You can get it in white or black. And then there's the Core Time 2, which is the color screen, which they did right at the very end. They had like this, the Pebble Time line, which the Pebble Time was the name of the product. They had a couple of them. 1.5-inch, 64 color e-paper screen. It's touch enabled. has a metal frame, comes in more options for finishes. $225 will ship starting in December. Both have 30-day battery life. Both have IPX8 water resistance. Both have step and sleep tracking. Both have a microphone and speaker. This is not a Kickstarter. Like, you can pre-order them. Pebble got sold to Google 100 years ago, or got sold to Fitbit, and then Fitbit got bought by Google. And then in January, Google open sourced Pebble OS, and now Eric is back. Eric, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. So I'm just calling him Eric.
Migikovsky?
Sure.
Maybe.
He was behind Beeper. Remember that? And then was a partner at Y Combinator, like successful in many ways. So he's back with this. Yeah, I think it's for people who want to tinker. I think it's particularly for people who are in the Android ecosystem where this watch has more access. And I think there are a lot of people who choose Android because it's more tinker friendly, to go in and customize things. And, if you want something like this, it's going to probably work better on Android. There's a somewhat spicy blog post that's in the show notes talking about ways that that Apple, the way that iOS is built, means that Pebble and other third-party smartwatches for the iPhone, for instance, can't send text messages or iMessages, can't reply to notifications or take actions on them. And then they're also dependent on the iOS app being open all the time. So if it gets closed in the background or is closed by the user, then the watch basically falls out of sync with the phone. And it's interesting timing that just this week as well, the EU orders Apple to open up access to iOS notifications. So there's also a link to that. Apple, of course, not a fan of this, and they have their own statement to it that they're unhappy. But it is going to be a limited experience on the iPhone compared to Android, and honestly, I think that's a bummer. I think this is an area where Apple should open up iOS.
Yeah, obviously I agree, but that's the European in me talking. I understand the appeal for tinkerers. Like, that's a good enough angle, I think.
Yeah.
It's
a big market. It's a market big enough for this company, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is from that perspective, like, if this is not an Apple Watch alternative, but it's like a little thing that you can put on your wrist and you can tinker and run whatever software you want, then I get it. It kind of reminds me of those e-ink screens that everybody's going crazy over these days, like that you can program however you want. I know that Quinn at Snazzy Labs did a video a few weeks ago about this e-ink display that he's using, and he did this really cool automation using shortcuts and webhooks on Zapier, I think, to put some data on that e-ink display in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's
very
called
cool,
Terminal.
very cool.
Is the
Terminal, thank you. Yes. So yeah, from that perspective, I understand the appeal then. Cool. And maybe I should get a Pebble and put some shortcuts data.
Okay. I pre-ordered one in black, just the basic one. It's not going to make me switch away from my Apple Watch, but I am interested in this, and I think that there's room, especially if the EU gets what they want here. Like, there's room for this to improve over time, and so maybe it's a great time for Pebble to come back. Maybe it could be more compelling than in the past. But I also like hardware startups, right? Like, hardware is really expensive and difficult. And in that blog post, he's like, look, we're funding this ourselves. It's not a Kickstarter. They've got the leeway to do that. And this has like 1,000% chance of being better than the Humane AI pen. Like, I also find it refreshing that this has not been, like, the Pebble has not been rebranded as like an AI powered smartwatch, right? Like, it just does smartwatch things. And I think that's very interesting.
So what I'm hearing is Widget Smith on Pebble, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
But you're also like not saying it.
I mean, did underscore talk me into ordering it? Yes. yes, he did.
Yeah. I mean, the headline writes itself. Widgetsmith developer buys a Apple Watch competitor product.
We're not,
You know,
you're going to get me in trouble. Like, come on.
and what too late already saved on the web Mac stories CMS.
The top of hacker news.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were in the Android ecosystem, I would be super psyched about this. As an iPhone user, I'm mostly doing it for my job. Like, I think it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But yeah, Pebble's back.
Yeah.
Not
Nice.
like I said, I thought they were dead and gone. Right? Like, did you have a Pebble back in the day?
No, never.
Okay, I did. I did the Kickstarter way back in the day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And in 2013, I reviewed it. And I'm going to do the annoying thing. And quote myself from 2013. The Pebble's big feature is its ability to show notifications from the iPhone on its screen. Remember, this is before the Apple Watch. Coupled with the built-in vibrator, this makes it easy to check in on a text or email without having to pull out your phone. When a notification comes in, it pops up on a screen, staying there until it's replaced by a newer message or is cleared by the press of a button. Keeping the watch and phone connected all day does impact the battery life on the phone. While it's not draining my phone dramatically faster, it is a noticeable change. So yeah, there you go. And I also talk about how it's iOS at the time didn't have a notification setting to send to Bluetooth. So like it just, you had to like go in and like disable and re-enable notifications. It was kind of clunky. I'm curious how much of that clunkiness remains 12 years later. My guess is a lot of it.
Yeah.
The EU, they're just big Pebble fans over there.
Yeah.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Incogni. Almost everyone experiences robocalls. I know I certainly do. And if you've ever wondered how they keep getting your number, the answer is data brokers. And that's where Incogni comes in. They reach out to data brokers on your behalf, request your personal data be removed, and deal with any objections from their side. Personal privacy is really important to a lot of people, including me. I don't want my information out there. And Incogni can make it easy to get your data back under your control. With Incogni, you protect your privacy in 3 easy steps. Create an account, grant them the right to contact data brokers on your behalf, and then kick back while they get to work. And you can stay up to date with their progress through a user-friendly dashboard that provides updates on the status of their removal requests. Visit incogni.com/connected to secure your data today. Sign up and enjoy a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's Incogni, INCOGNI, incogni.com/connected. Protect your privacy with Incogni and experience peace of mind knowing that your personal information is safe. Use the code CONNECTED with the link in the show notes, and you'll get 60% off an annual plan. Our thanks to Incogni for their support of the show and all of Relay. Lastly, we have some iPhone design leaks.
Okay, what are we looking at
to talk about? So these are they are models leaked by everyone's friend Sonny Dixon, who has a very, I think, mostly good track record of these things. So these are dummy models of Apple's. That's the name of the company. Apple's upcoming iPhone 17 line. So we have 17, 17 Air, 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max. And looking at these pictures, this does not seem extremely cohesive to me that this is all one family of iPhones.
Yeah, you got the so they're basically, it looks like for the iPhone 17 Air, so the slim one, they're basically gonna copy the design of the camera bar on the Pixel
Very,
phones.
very much so.
And on the Pro ones, they're doing a higher camera bar. So you're looking at a rectangle that extends, like it's not a square just in a corner.
Yeah.
It's about the same height, but it extends all the way to the other side.
Yes. Yeah. If
So that's
if you took a picture of the current iPhone Pro, and in Photoshop you grabbed the edge of that raised camera area, whose name we're going to talk about in a second, and drug it all the way over. And like, I don't mind that look, but where this falls down for me is if you look at the 2-camera iPhone 17, according to this, it looks like it does now. It's just like 2 stacked cameras on a little raised area. It does not have the bar. And to me, that's the one that stands out. Like if you're going to commit to this camera bar or like visor thing, I think is what they call it on the Pixel, like do it across the board. But the base 17 feels out of step with these other designs. And that's the one that jumps out to me.
My main problem is that it looks like there's a lot of wasted space in between, especially on the Pro phones, in between the rightmost lens and the other items on the right side. So the flash and the LiDAR sensor and the microphone, I suppose. Like it looks like there's a lot of wasted space in the middle. I had a fun theory that it's never gonna come true, but can you imagine if like that wasted space is not actually wasted space, but can you imagine if underneath that area there's actually like a whole bunch of sensors that are hold on. So you know the rumor of iOS 19, right? That it's gonna look a lot more like Vision OS.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the things of Vision OS is how windows are styled, and windows are translucent because they pick up the context of your surroundings, or windows behind them, like they reflect the colors and the surface and the lighting and the shadows of the real world.
Oh boy!
Now, can you imagine if these iPhones had sensors in that quote-unquote wasted space that could be used in a low-power, efficient way to like run a constant scanner to tint windows on your phone based on where you are in space?
I love
Silly
this
theory. They're never gonna do it, but one can dream, you know?
Yeah, a fascinating theory. Some flip phones use like a similar area for like a tiny screen with like little widgets.
Yeah.
Little widget.
Yeah. Little widget.
Could live back there.
Little widget.
Little widget.
Yeah. I don't know. Realistically, it's just a whole lot of empty space.
Is. You know what it reminds me of? If you go in system settings on the Mac, and like how much space between there is a label and the switch, like way on the other side. It's like, what if we turned that into hardware? What if we put a bunch of space in between?
What if you left aligned and right aligned, and in the middle there's nothing?
You could drive a car in the space in the middle.
Yeah.
Look, I'm all for the phone being updated, and I think the renders, like from John Prosser and others, like I think it looks interesting. My main complaint is that there's a real lack of continuity in this design, especially with the 17. And like, why not put that thing in a camera bar as well? The other thing that comes out in these reports or that has continued to come out is that the whole back of the phone, at least on the Pro models, may not be glass, that this raised camera area may be offset like from an aluminum body. And then there's kind of a window of glass for MagSafe and the charging and all of that stuff, which I think could be really interesting depending on how they make it look. Is it going to look like there's a window of glass back there? We'll see. It's the possibilities, like in my mind, are really kind of broad in how this could look. And like, what if the color is slightly different between the glass and the aluminum? Like, I think there's some interesting things Apple could do here. I just think when you walk into an Apple store, and maybe this is the point, you're going to walk into an Apple store and the iPhone 17 is going to look old compared to the Air and the Pros that have that full width camera bar thing on the back.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And
yeah, that's a good point.
in the past, like a couple of years ago with the 15, remember the 15 like didn't get the new processor. It got like a hand-me-down, and it's just, I don't think Apple should punish the entry-level iPhone in undue ways. I understand that it's going to be, like, yeah, it doesn't have promotion, like they should change that. But I understand there are going to be specs that are always better between the regular phone and the Pro phone, but I think they should look basically the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, but we'll see.
We'll see.
It's March. We got time.
Yeah. We have 6 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jason says this is what True Tone. That's what they could call it. They could reuse that name. True Tone is the thing that matches the screen temperature, right? Like to the light in the room.
Yes. Which is different from Night Shift. That's the thing that removes the blue light from the screen.
Yeah. Lots of names. Everything gets a name.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah. Speaking of names, do we need to talk about this post? Do we have to?
Oh, yeah. You don't like Mesa.
No. Every once in a while in the Apple community, especially, somebody comes up with a nickname for something.
MacBook Escape.
I just wish that this is like, I think this is how I'm most similar to Myke in this regard. I have a profound dislike for convincing people to call something that it's not the official something, or the way regular people refer to that something. Like, I keep hearing Camera Mesa, and it all happened sort of suddenly, and then everybody started calling it that. And I got it at some point in my replies, like, "Oh, what do you think of the Mesa?" Like, what is a Mesa? And so, like, can we just, most people just call it the camera. First of all, they don't even call it the camera bump. Most people in real life would just say, "Oh, that's a huge camera." Like they don't. But camera bump is a normal English word to describe what is, objectively speaking, a bump. But no, we had to complicate this. We had to sound extra fancy to say, well, no, actually, the bump is the Mesa and the lens is the bump. Like, how many names do we need to have to describe what is a bump? This is like when everybody suddenly realized, instead of calling them colors, we can call them colorways.
I saw that, yeah.
And that's gonna make us sound much more professional. Like, I just have just like MacBook Escape, or like other examples now. Well, I can think of them, but there have been some.
iTouch.
And I've always, it's like this collective thing that starts happening, this hive mind that starts calling things with a very specific nickname for no particular reason other than somebody came up with it. We better now all follow and call it that. Like, we were perfectly fine calling it a camera bump or just a camera, but no, we had to use Mesa. This is what I think about Steven in my free time.
I see that.
So,
I like that you used y'all in your post. That made me feel good.
Yes, you're rubbing off on me. What can I say? Yeah. It's sometimes I think y'all is a very good way to describe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you are a person who uses y'all on a regular basis. But I think it's a perfect expression to refer to a bunch of people without upsetting anybody. It's like, y'all, come on. No,
it's great.
It's very, it's crowd pleasing. It's convenient. See, that's good English, y'all. Like, it says everything it's supposed to say without sounding like Mesa. Y'all. It's so clear. Everybody understands it. Words, man.
How do they work?
They're gonna kill me. Words are gonna kill me.
I hope not. Well, if you want to remember Federico fondly, you can read his website, macstories.net. When he was alive, he was the editor-in-chief, but now it's John. I guess. It would be John, right? See the successor?
No, I don't want to have this conversation with you.
Okay. You got to think about these things. You got to have a succession plan. I mean, we don't for this podcast. That's not a thing.
Okay.
But in business, you should.
Right.
Anyways, Federico is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, and he's Vitici across social media. Myke is still on paternity leave, but he'll be back at some point. Just, think about Myke. Blow a kiss into the air when you do. I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing when I started that sentence.
Eric Hughes style,
Yeah. That was weird. You can find my writing at 512pixels.net, and I co-host Mac Power Users here on Relay each and every Sunday. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week for making the show possible. The fine folks over at Google Gemini, Squarespace, Turbulence Forecast, and Incogni. Thank you so much. If you want to support Connected directly and get longer ad-free versions of the show, you can do that. Go to getconnectedpro.co. It's $7 a month. And you also get access to the Relay Members Discord, a newsletter, a couple of members-only podcasts, and a whole lot more. If you had feedback or follow-up for the show, there's a link in the show notes, or you can go to connectedfeedback.com, leave us a note. And until next week, Federico, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Bye, y'all.